What is up, everyone? We are at the top one of the top five new brews for Wilds of Eldraine, and today we are looking at Golgari food as the main deck. We also have a few variants of this Golgari deck, but this is the one I think is really cool. Golgari food makes use of a lot of artifacts and artifact synergy creatures. So we have Teething Wormlet, a great one drop for green that hadn't seen enough play despite how good it is. Whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, you gain one life, and then if it's the first time it happened, it gets a +1/+1 counter on it first time each turn. So each turn potentially it's going to grow bigger and bigger, and then if you have at least 3 or more artifacts, it also has Death Touch. Okay, the other one drops that we got Dockside Chef. It's a 1 mana 1/2, which is an enchantment creature, and for 1 and a black, you can sacrifice an artifact or creature and draw a card. So mainly we can use that to draw some cards from our extra artifacts that we have. We also have Vat of Rebirth. Whenever an artifact or creature you control is put into a graveyard, put an oil counter on Vat of Rebirth. And then for 3 and a tap, remove 4 oil counters and return a creature from your graveyard to the battlefield. And then Annihilating Glare is a black for destroy target creature or planeswalker, but as an additional cost, you have to sacrifice a creature, an artifact, or pay 4. So again, we're mostly going to use that for artifacts. All right, and then the last 1 mana play we can do is this Gumdrop Poisoner is for 1 black. At instant speed, we can make a food token. So yeah, we actually have quite a lot of turn one plays, but turn two is where the real gas starts. So we've got Elvish Archivist. Whenever an artifact enters the battlefield, put 2/1/1 counters on Elvish Archivist. This happens only once each turn. So whenever an artifact enters, this creature gets bigger and bigger. This one's instant speed, so we can do this on the opponent's turn as well to make our stuff grow. But on our turn, we can drop things like Vat of Rebirth and a lot of these other cards that we're going to see in just a second. And then also, whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield, you draw a card. So Dockside Chef is an enchantment, so we'll draw from that. We have a bunch of sagas as well, so whenever those enter, we will draw cards from that also. So yeah, basically we can make use of both sides of this card pretty effectively. The other really great 2 drop we have is Sir Ginger. I don't think people really thought about the synergies that this has when it was revealed. They mostly thought about it being like a Planeswalker hoser. But yeah, honestly, it's been really sweet, this card. So whenever another artifact you control is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on Sir Ginger and scry 1. That's the whole point of the deck, is to put artifacts on the battlefield and then sacrifice them. So they're going to go to the graveyard, and this is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And we have Annihilating Glare, Dockside Chef, and a few other ways that you'll see to remove artifacts. So that's going to grow our Sir Ginger just by using our abilities there. We're also playing the Witch's Vanity 2 mana saga. First part is a little bit narrow, destroy target creature with mana value 2 or less. So it's kind of like our replacement for Cut Down, but it has a lot of upsides. So that's why we're running this one. The enchantment also, like we mentioned, can draw you cards. Then second phase of this makes a food token. That's an artifact, so that can grow our Wormlet. That can help with our Sir Ginger, Vat of Rebirth. Turn on our Annihilating Glare, etc., etc. And then the last phase of that one, create a Wicked Roll token attached to creature. Okay, so another way to pump our, one of our creatures, but it also is an enchantment, so it again will draw our Elvish Archivist. And late in the game, we have another way to sacrifice enchantments, so we can do something with that too. The next one, Tough Cookie. This is probably the weakest creature in the deck, but it plays a big role, so that's why we have this. So we got 3 of these. It's a 1 and a green for a 2/2 artifact creature, food golem, so it's a food. And then when it enters the battlefield, you create a food token, so you get 2 foods, 2 artifacts. Again, that turns on our Wormlet, that turns on our Archivist, and when they get sacked, either of those foods or the creature dies, Sir Ginger's going to get bigger. It also has a way to sacrifice itself to gain you life, same as Sir Ginger, and it has a 2 and a green where you can turn an non-creature artifact into a 4/4 until end of turn, so you can turn your food into 4/4s in a pinch, though probably that won't happen that often. And then the last 2-drop we got is Welcome to Sweet Tooth. Now this one is key. This is a really big part of the food deck, what makes it good. It's an enchantment, so again, it draws for the Elvish Archivist. Create a 1/1 human token, which we can use to sack if we want to, or just as a creature. Create a food artifact, and then the last phase, put X +1/+1 counters on target creature you control, where X is 1 plus the number of foods you control. So this generates a food. 1 plus that is going to be 2. If we had a tough cookie on the battlefield, like we could even play it, after we play the Welcome to Sweet Tooth on phase 2, then Tough Cookie is going to generate 2 more food tokens. So 1, 2, 3. We're going to get 4 +1/+1 counters from this. If we have a Sir Ginger down, that's also a food. So that could be 5. Like we mentioned, Gumdrop Poisoner makes food, so you could have even more than 5. The Witch's Vanity makes food, so all of these make food. Then your Sweet Tooth is going to pump your creatures by probably at least +4/+4, and then it could be even higher. And these are +1/+1 counters, so these stay on your creatures. These don't, as long as they're on the battlefield, they don't go away at the end of the turn. All right, so all of that pretty sweet, but we have a pretty crazy top end finisher. Necrosquito, 4 mana. This is not the finisher, but this is a cool thing. Necrosquito, 4 mana. It comes into the battlefield with 2 oil counters on it, and it gets +1/+1 for each oil counter. Whenever another creature or an artifact you control is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, put an oil counter on Necrosquito. So it has oil counters. It gets bigger the more artifacts go to the graveyard. So we have all these, what we talked about, sending artifacts to the graveyard, we mentioned here. And then we have this one, Lich Knight's Conquest. Sacrifice any number of artifacts, enchantments, or tokens, and return that many creatures from the graveyard to the battlefield. So what you're hoping is, you play like a Teething Wormlet, you play a Sir Ginger, maybe they kill your Wormlet because they don't want it to grow. Maybe you play like a Elvish Archivist, they kill that. Turn 4, you drop the Necrosquito, and then turn 5, you sack. Okay, well I did the bad sequence. I guess you need like the food token from here, and you might need one of your sagas. But the idea is you have a few food tokens lying around. You have your Sir Ginger or your Necrosquito on the battlefield, and then you sack all your food, and it's going to grow these creatures like really big very quickly. If you have three artifacts laying around, like a tough cookie and a food token, and even if you Sir Ginger, you could sack that if you want, but probably not. And then you can bring back your whole board, and you can grow your Sir Ginger and your Necrosquito. So potentially, if you have the Necrosquito down and you sack enough stuff, you could just win the game right there, because it would grow to be like a 6/6 or something like that. Or if you just have it down and you use your Glare to sack a food token or something, like, you're still doing well, right? All right. So that's the main idea of the deck. Growing your creatures and sacking artifacts and getting stuff back from the graveyard, etc. Pretty sweet. We do have a few lands that are nice. Restless Cottage, when it attacks, it generates food, so that's more ways to get food. Roadside Reliquary draws for each. If you control a artifact and an enchantment, you draw 2 cards. So we can pretty easily do that. Monumental Facade puts oil counters on things, so we can put that on Necrosquito or on the Vat of Rebirth. So Yeah, even though land's very good synergy, deck seems pretty cool. We'll have to see how it does against the format, but at least you have ways to kill children, and your creatures can grow very large, so the opponent definitely has to remove them. And then if they remove them, you can get them back later. So that's kind of the goal of the deck. All right. Let's go on to the second one. This is a Golgari value deck. So this is pretty standard, kind of like your mono green deck, but we're splashing in some black. Evolving Adaptive is a good 1 mana drop that grows bigger and bigger. So same with Evolved Sleeper. Ascendant Pack Leader, another pretty good one, but not the greatest. And then we have 2 cut downs to help with removal. Then in the 2 mana slot, of course, we've got the new card, the Mosswood Dread Knight. Looks really sweet, good body, and good draw effect, and kind of can't be killed. They have to exile it. On top of that, we have Kyrian Beastcaller, which gets bigger for each creature you cast. So the fact that you can keep casting Dread Knight means you can keep making your Kyrian Beastcaller bigger. Also, it can, in a lot of times, grow your Evolving Adaptive. I don't know, I said it backwards. And then we also have Underdog, another recursive threat, which is pretty solid. Um, I think you probably want it. I mean, maybe there's another 2-drop that would be better in this slot, but who knows. And then Feral Encounter, that's the new removal spell and draw spell that we got for in green. And so as long as you have a decent number of early game creatures, it's pretty solid because you can still use the removal and you can also get something on the battlefield. And then in the 3 mana slot, we have all our draw cards. We have Glissa Sunslayer, we have Kix Yawgmoth, and then Bloated Contaminator is pretty decent. It helps to put counters on your stuff, so we can put counters on Evolving Adaptive, Carrying Beastcaller, sometimes Evolve Sleeper, sometimes Ascendant Pack Leader, but also has Trample, so it can get through and get you cards from your gigs. And in the 4 mana slot, Frostbane Troll is the new card. It is pretty good. It's 4 mana for a 5/5 basically because it has the aura on it. And it also has trample. And then in a pinch, you can sacrifice the aura and use this as a fight to kill another creature. So, doesn't kill children. That's the downside. So that's a little bit disappointing, but if you have this and use Feral Encounter, you can kill children. Or, yeah, maybe that's the only way. So, might need to have a go for the throat or something here to help out as well. But at least the 5/5 trample that sometimes can be removal is pretty decent. And then we have Gix Command, also another way to kill Shieldred, and another way to get back creatures that are inevitably going to get killed. So yeah, that's kind of it. It's just value. You never run out of gas because you got your Mosswood Dread Knight, your Tenacious Underdog, you got your land here, and you got a little bit of recursion. So you shouldn't really run out of anything to do, and you should be able to put a lot of pressure on the opponent. Okay, and then the final one. This is not Golgari, but it's pretty much Golgari. It's only splashing a little bit of blue. We have a Sultai self-mill deck. It's making use of a lot of the cards have just been building up. The cards that want stuff in the graveyard. So, Death Bonnet Sprout, the new Fairy Dream Thief, also very happy to be put in the graveyard, and also it has Surveil, so you can put stuff in the graveyard. And then finally Gnawing Vermin to mill us a little bit. And we now have 3 creatures, Old Stick Fingers, the Lurgoyf, and the Somnophage, which all care about creatures in the graveyard to get their power and toughness. And the Somnophage is a little bit stronger than the other ones because it puts, XX for creature cards in both graveyards, which, at the beginning of the game doesn't matter that much, but as you kill stuff, as you trade creatures, they're going to get more stuff in their graveyard, and it's going to get bigger and bigger. It also has the Sorcery Speed Adventure to mill yourself if you need to. Stick Fingers also has a way to mill. Lurgoth has a way to mill, so they all have built-in ways to mill. And then finally, we have Likeness Looter, another way to kind of mill, so you're looting, and then you can also, for 2 mana, turn it into the Somniphage, the Stick Fingers, or the Lurgoyf. So very cheap, cost to get a really good effect from something in your graveyard. So that one just fits in perfectly, to be honest. 2 mana is kind of the range you want, turns into something really useful. It's very sweet. And then we're running 2 Shigeki just so we can get back a lot of our creatures. We mill ourselves a lot, so we're inevitably going to mill some stuff that we want, and then Shigeki can help us to get those back. And then finally, the top end Skyfisher Spider. Not the greatest, but if we want to sack like our Fairy Dream Thief or an Iron Vermin, or sometimes our Death Bonnet Spout, though probably less often, that one we can sack them, we can destroy a non-land permanent, and then when it dies, we can also gain a bunch of life because we have a bunch of creatures in our graveyard. So that's the main idea. Spider maybe could be something else. That's the only questionable card in the deck, but I do think you want some ways to kill the vermin at least, and maybe the Dream Thief. So, and it has a good payoff for that. All right, that's about it. So those are the 3 decks. But yeah, we're focused on Golgari, looking pretty sweet. Maybe Golgari's back, maybe, but we'll have to see. We have the early access streamer event tomorrow, so don't miss it. Starts at 4 p.m. PST. Hope to see you all there. Till then, see ya.